Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. It's Fight Week! It's Fight Week for reigning WBA Super Flyweight Champion Jasmine Artigga, who will be taking on Sandstorm in defense of her WBA title this weekend on the undercard of an MVP show. This will be Jasmine Artigga's MVP debut. Both fighters are 33 years old. Both fighters are orthodox fighters. Jasmine is a little taller, give or take an inch and a half. Doesn't make that much of a difference. Jasmine sports a professional record of 13 wins with no losses, 1 draw, 6 knockouts, unbeaten in 14 professional starts. To Australia's own Sandstorm, who sports a professional record of 10 wins with 3 losses, 3 draws, 2 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 16 professional bouts. Last in action in March of this year opposite the ring, Jocelyn Fernandez, who she decisioned over 10 rounds. Currently on a 2-fight winning streak, ranked at number 1 via the WBA. I'm not sure if this would satisfy the mandatory obligation for Jasmine Artigga, it being that while Sandstorm is rated at number 1, Natalie Delgado is the interim champion. Natalie Delgado of Panama. I'm not sure if after this an order from the WBA will come down for Jasmine to face Natalie, or will she be free to go because Lynn is ranked at number 1. In any event, Jasmine will be defending her newly obtained WBA title that she picked up in her last fight opposite the ring, Regina Chavez, who I think should have won, who I think should have got the decision, but she didn't. They gave it to Jasmine, and Jasmine is very lucky to have that belt right now. A night of firsts on the 23rd, Jasmine's first defense as WBA champion and her first fight under the MVP banner. They decided to sign her. Is Jasmine's reign as WBA champion under threat this weekend against Sandstorm? In previous instances, I've had my critiques, my criticisms of Jasmine's boxing, but this weekend, I think she's gonna be alright. I think she's got what it takes to beat Sandstorm. Lynn, who may have more professional bouts than Jasmine, but not more natural ability. She's still very much rough around the edges. Very messy when coming forward. Falling in, falling so far in, she ends up in a clinch. If she does that with Jasmine Artigga, she could pay for it. She could pay for it dearly, where Jasmine, she's a lot more fluid with her output, a lot more fluid with her combinations, with her movement. I think she's got better instincts as a fighter, better instincts overall, and she's a lot more put together than Sandstorm. The work from Lynn is noticeably more messy than what you get from Jasmine. Very stiff, very tense. Could see a situation to where as Lynn is trying to come forward, she could get caught. She could get countered. Jasmine Artigga shows great countering ability. Punch for punch, I think she's the noticeably bigger puncher of the two. In terms of ring acumen, ring savvy, I think that Jasmine is a more fluid boxer, a noticeably more fluid boxer than Sandstorm. Lynn has never been knocked out. She's never been stopped before, but I think this weekend, there's a first time for everything. I think Jasmine is going to get her. I think Jasmine is going to stop her. She's going to get in hard with a counter, stun Sandstorm, and pour it on. Lynn is going to be a deer in the headlights when she feels that punch, when she feels that power. I will give Jasmine Artigga this. She's one of the bigger punchers in the super flyweight division, and Sandstorm is about to find that out the hard way. I've got Jasmine by way of knockout. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, Hall of Fame promoter Lou Dibella took to his social media to express his discontent with Jarrell Miller's participation for the Canelo vs. Crawford fight week, saying, "I've got a query for those who purport to care about boxing, and let me preface by saying I personally like Jarrell and won't vilify him for being part of the cheating masses in a sport that only pretends to care about regulating PEDs. But why on one of boxing's biggest nights in years, with a huge real fight on the mega non-pay-per-view platform, is boxing showcasing the most notorious serial repeat cheat in the sport's history? If I knew him, I'd ask Turkey." I think Turkey would have a couple of questions for you if he knew you. A Twitter user that goes by the name David said it's not the promoter's responsibility to impose punitive action versus fighters for transgressions of the sport's laws. That is the responsibility of the athletic commissions and sanctioning bodies. You are appealing on moral grounds. What is right? To which Lou Dibella responded, "He doesn't enhance the card, but I basically agree with you. The problem with boxing is that promoters haven't ever self-governed, which is why the existing paradigm is done. Dana is 100% right when he said, we didn't govern ourselves and reinvest in the sport. The sport has no overseers." So let me start off by saying this. Lou Dibella doesn't seem like a bad guy, but he's very much a hypocrite. For context, he's worked with fighters who tested positive for banned substances, even made excuses for some. When Hannah Gabriels popped hot ahead of the Clarissa Shields rematch, the only explanation that Lou offered, Lou who represents her, was it came from her dog. It came from her dog's medication. An explanation just as preposterous as anything you would have heard from Jarrell. The dog ate my performance-enhancing drugs excuse. Dog ate my homework. Off the top of my head, I can name at least 3 fighters that Lou Dibella has worked with that tested positive for banned substances, the same as Jarrell Miller and many others. Hannah Gabriels, Heather Hardy. After Jean Pascal tested positive for 4 banned substances, guess who he worked with right after that? Lou Dibella. After he popped hot for 4 different banned substances. So why is Lou Dibella standing on his soapbox now about Jarrell Miller? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Don't harp about someone else's dirty laundry when you have your own Hemper. In the glory days of the PBC, back when Deontay Wilder's name meant something, I didn't see Lou clutching at his pearls over Luis Ortiz, who tested positive for banned substances not once, but twice. And he was still allowed to resume his career. So what's your hang-up with Jarrell? This is all for context, you understand? This is intended to illustrate that Lou Dibella is just as culpable, just as guilty as anybody else. He's just as much an ableist. He is just as much an enabler as Turkey LL Sheik, as Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum, the people at the PBC, all of which have worked with fighters that popped hot. So why do you keep crying about it? Why moan about it now? Who are you trying to win brownie points with? The same people that are going to watch the card anyway? PEDs or no PEDs? Conor Benn popped hot, and everybody in the UK seemingly turned against him for it. But that didn't stop them from watching the Eubank fight. Tyson Fury popped hot Fernando alone years ago. It almost never gets mentioned now. So that when he beat Wilder years later, that didn't stop both the British media and the American media from lavishing praise upon him in spite of his sketchy past with performance-enhancing drugs, and you were right there for all of it. So then why pipe up now? What makes one PED user different from another? What's supposed to set Jarrell Miller apart from the guy in the main event? Canelo Alvarez, who tested positive for clenbuterol, a banned substance. I'm just giving it to you straight, because it's the only way I know how to give it to you. This has happened so many times with so many high-profile fighters, bigger names than a Jarrell Miller, that I'm not hung up on Jarrell Miller fighting on this show, and I'm not hung up on PEDs anymore. Ryan Garcia popped hot for a banned substance, Osterin, last year. He was issued a suspension shortly after that. So that shortly after that, he can fight for a WBA title. You heard that right. Ryan Garcia, who was coming off a doping violation, his first fight back, was allowed to fight for a WBA title at welterweight. Boxing clearly doesn't care. So quit with your pearl clutching, Lou. This is all the sanctimonious crap you'd expect from a virtue-signaling Democrat. It's just disingenuous. Who are you trying to win brownie points with? So many fighters that I can name off the top of my head, some of which have tested positive for banned substances more than once. Lucas Brown, twice. Dillian White, twice. Luis Ortiz, twice. Alexander Povetkin. Those guys all popped hot more than once, and every single one of them was allowed to resume their career. So that if Jarrell Miller's still running around, why are you acting surprised? Why are you even pointing it out? You should be used to it by now. If the guy in the main event has popped hot before, and he's still fighting, people act like it didn't happen, what are you worried about Jarrell Miller for? Give it a rest, Lou. Over to the main event, where Terrence Crawford locks down camp until the Canelo Alvarez fight week, approximately 4 weeks from now. Terrence Crawford is on a single-minded mission to upset undisputed super middleweight champion Canelo Alvarez on September 13th, so much so that he's closed his training camp to all interviews until he arrives in Las Vegas for fight week. Crawford's trainer, Brian McIntyre, and publicist Julie Gold-Sticker both informed Boxing Scene on Friday that Crawford will not admit visitors to his camp in Colorado Springs as the unbeaten four-weight world champion focuses on the final month of his preparations for Mexico's four-weight world champion, two-time undisputed. They've both been undisputed champion 2 times. Terrence Crawford at 2 separate weights, whereas Canelo 2 times at the same weight at super middle. The bout will be streamed by Netflix from Allegiant Stadium, home of the Las Vegas Raiders. The 37-year-old Crawford, 41-0 with 31 KOs, hasn't fought since August 3rd of last year when he moved up 1 weight class to win the WBA junior middleweight title from Israel Madrimov, claiming the final 2 rounds to pull away in what was a close fight, moving up from 154 up to 168 to meet the dominant and popular Alvarez on Mexican Independence Day weekend is a daunting challenge, and Nebraska's Crawford is a plus 145 underdog. So he wants to upset a lot of Mexicans on Mexican Independence Day weekend. Crawford, according to one expert in his camp, is wary of repeating the mistakes that former junior middleweight champions Jermell Charlo and Jaime Munguia made by inflating their frames to a new weight limit without consideration of other factors. Crawford wants to retain his ability to fight with fluidity, maximizing the effectiveness of his power punches from both hands, and ability to fight from the southpaw stance. His old buddy Israel Madrimov made some mention of not putting on too much weight.
Perspective, having fought Terrence, him now fighting Canelo, moving up 2 more weight classes to fight a lot bigger guy.
Сейчас всем интересно вот это бой, потому что они занимают паунд-по-паунду. Кроуфорд, у Кроуфорда есть высокий IQ, и обоих стойках он может боксировать, он можно давить и бегать, и даже ближний бой тоже может. Поэтому мне тоже интересно, если он не набирает лишний вес, может тоже выиграть это. Есть шанс.
For the lumbering Alvarez to land effective power shots, he'll need to catch Crawford, who overwhelmed his best opponent to date, Errol Spence Jr., with a sublime fight plan. I always knew that Terrence was better on the inside, within close quarters, than Errol Spence Jr., but I cannot say the same when it comes to an Alvarez fight. If you try to fight Canelo on the inside, you may be outgunned. This is not Errol Spence. This training camp and fight has legacy-affirming stakes for Crawford. In the event of a win, he would stand as an unbeaten 5-weight world champion, ranging from lightweight to super middle, and accentuate his already considerable resume with its most impressive win yet. Even after the shellacking that he put on Errol Spence Jr., there are still people out there that try to find ways to diminish him and his legacy so far, his resume. This is one win that if he can get it, you can't tear it down. He is at every conceivable disadvantage going into this fight. Perhaps that is why so many experts in the field struggle with the idea that Terence can win. Abel Sanchez doesn't think that he can. Two-time super lightweight champion Regis Prograis, he doesn't see it either.
I don't personally see it. A lot of people see that Crawford can beat Canelo. Man, it's just like that punch resistance is something else. They make weight classes for a reason. If he could beat him, man, I think he on the Mount Rushmore of fighters if Crawford can pull this off. But I don't see it.
Eliminating any distraction through the process of pursuing that achievement is part of Crawford's plan that, if successful, will go down as a triumph for the history books. History is right. Very few fighters, actually go undisputed, let alone undisputed 2 times. You got fighters, they can win a belt at a weight. There are a lot of those fighters. There are a lot of champions in the sport of boxing. There have been even fewer multi-weight champions, even fewer multi-weight undisputed champions, let alone 2-time, 3-time undisputed champions. That's what Terence Crawford is attempting to achieve, and even now, it escapes me. How does he mean to win this fight, simultaneously offsetting Canelo Alvarez's power, but still putting out enough to win the rounds, to win on the cards, because he doesn't stand much chance of knocking him out. Canelo Alvarez has one of the best chins, if not the best chin, in boxing right now. Never stopped, never dropped. In over 60 fights. The idea that Terence will be the one to do it? Insanity. The predictions are pouring in as the weeks pass by, and you're getting the big fight feel. It's getting exciting. What I like about Terence's demeanor ahead of this fight is he's not dejected or reserved. Reserved like Jaime Munguia was ahead of his fight with Canelo. It was very cordial, very respectful. You didn't get a sense of bad intentions from Jaime or Jermell Charlo either. Charlo's one of these guys to where when he's away, he's got a lot to say, a lot of big talk. But when the fight finally came around, he was very cordial with Canelo, very respectful, shrinking in the moment, I would say. It's not like that with Crawford. Crawford has stayed in character from the moment that this fight was announced. He's not shrinking like those other guys did, you know. I see the same look in his eyes, the same intentions that I always see from Crawford ahead of a fight. I like that. There is a fear, a feeling that for all of the talk around this fight, Terence is going to run like Jermell ran and like Edgar Berlanga ran and William Skull more recently, that they're making this out to be this monumental fight, but when the opening bell sounds, Terence is going to be on his bike. I don't believe that. Terence's demeanor is why, and the look in his eyes, he doesn't look like he's shrinking in the moment. He wants this, and he wants to be here. Moreover, he wants to beat Canelo. Now that by itself doesn't mean that he's going to, but that the intention is there. I think that does set him apart from the last few guys that Canelo fought. Those guys didn't really believe that they could win the fight. Terence is crazy enough. He really believes he can, and so does his team, and that's what makes for a great fight. The power of belief.